So this is one of the many TVTs we just played. Uh, in case anyone else I coach tries to get jealous, the reason I play TVTs against Panda is because he's good, man. It's good practice for me and for him. Same reason I play TVTs against Nick until Nick says, I can't stand it when you win all the time. I'm not playing with you anymore. And then we play Star Jewels and we're like, this is so much more peaceful, man. So you got your expo much earlier than I did. Yours was landed and morphing into an orbital at the same time mine started. So that's good for you if you survive any sort of early harass and pressure. Obviously, he who makes his expo first is more vulnerable to this sort of thing. Somebody just walking up and killing your face. I liked that you used these repairing dudes to survive the tank pressure until your tank with siege mode got out. That was great. Because an attack for me at 7 minutes with siege mode is pretty deadly if you don't repair those bunkers. I often lose to that sort of stuff. Like, I just wasn't aggressive enough. I'm pretty sure you could have been dead from that push. Bigger army, siege mode first. Could have been dead. Could have been dead. Problem is that you had so many marauders that I was afraid to expose my siege tanks to marauder fire. So and I didn't have enough marines to kill your marauders really quickly. So I wanted to do a kind of bunker push, and then I just got distracted by my macro and whatever. So going for the immediate 4 gas and the 111 or 211 tech with the fast expo. I like it. As long as you can survive until siege mode is out, you're not really vulnerable to very much once you have bunker siege tank with Viking and potential Raven. But as we'll see later on in the game, it is vulnerable to some stuff. So income-wise, you got this expo up really fast, and yet your income is basically the same as mine or even lower. So I don't know that I like that. That just means that you're not keeping up on worker production. And you'll notice my money gets high a lot. I forget unit production a lot and stuff like that, but I never forget worker production. It's really important that you remember what comes first. First things first, worker production. Second thing is spending the money, and third is making a reasonable infrastructure. So it's okay to fall behind for a short time on infrastructure. You can lose games because of it, but you'll lose a lot more games by not pulling money out of the ground. So I used this tank to bait your army. I waited outside your base, and when your army came over, I was like, alright, run away. And then at the same time I did drop over here, knocking down some supply depots. With the supply depots on the edge of the map like this to scout for drops, I mean, I approve of supply depots to scout for drops, but you really only need, you know, one here and one here and one here. You don't need all of your supply depots to be vulnerable on the outside of your base like this. Also, one thing I noticed in the previous TVTs that we played is that you're amazingly good at macro, making enough money, spending enough money, making a reasonable production infrastructure, and micro, using your units, but you can't do both at once. So as soon as I just put any sort of pressure on, your money just starts to climb really high. And you get supply blocked because I knocked down supply depots, and bad things, bad things. So watchtowers are always quite important. I just took a watchtower and threw siege tanks at it, and there's really nothing you can do about that except go around it. So at this point, you set up this siege line, saying, okay, that's where your tanks are. This is where I'll put my tanks, and I'll try to kind of slow tank push you because of my Vikings. The problem is, when I'm hugging this watchtower, the Viking advantage doesn't matter. So you should just refuse to compete for the watchtower. Okay, whoever gets there first owns it, and there's nothing you can do about it. Just say, fine, you can have that watchtower. I'm gonna walk over here, and then over here, and then over here, and be in between your reinforcements and your army. So now I have to hit you from both sides, or counterattack up there, or die. Basically, those are my only options. So as long as you have bunkers and like 3 tanks back home, and you throw your army in between my 2 armies, now I'm kind of forced to take my Hellion small number of siege tank army and fight against your M&M tank, which is a lot stronger. Income wise, we're both still basically even. I'm pulling even further ahead at this point, and I'm throwing down this third and fourth. It's important to get your third and fourth before 15 minutes or around 15 minutes, because your main the first patch at your main is going to run dry at 15 minutes. As you can see, you're on 7 patches instead of 8. So your main is already starting to dry out. You need a third. This mule energy is really high. I've seen this in a lot of your games too. You got to start spending this mule energy. Don't save it for scans. Spend it on mules, and that'll be like an extra 2,000 bucks. And you might say to yourself, I have all this money, all these minerals that I can't spend already. Why would I need more? Well, the answer is you can spend more money. I mean, if you have more income, you're going to make more buildings and spend that money, you know? So don't think of it like I already have plenty of minerals, I don't need more. Think of it like if I make more minerals, I can make more command centers and therefore get more gas. So, yeah. Use your mules, use your mules, use your mules. I'd rather lose every 17th game due to not having a scan when I really wanted it than lose all of my games because I have a lot less money than I should due to not using my mules. So you did a drop here and I chose to completely ignore it. Now an awesome player, of course, would be able to both do Hellion Harass and defend against these Vikings, but I am not awesome. So I chose to just rally to right here and say, I'm going to hide all my workers in here. These are hidden expos, so I didn't want to run my workers to a more useful place, which would have been to my new expos. I ran them all home. So they're basically not doing anything, so this is great. You're stopping mining completely for the cost of basically 6 Vikings, which you can lift and run away. Knocking down a command center, all sorts of great damage, but you gotta wonder, you're doing a lot of damage and I'm doing some damage. But am I doing more than you, right? The reason that I chose not to worry about those Vikings is that I knew that landed Vikings are never going to do the amount of damage that Blue Flame Hellions can do. So your worker count, which used to be even with mine, is now basically none. And this is pretty much the end of the game. So right until before these Blue Flames got into your base, we were pretty even and you were doing the right sort of things. But as soon as all those workers died, it's the end. So I wouldn't pay too much attention to anything that happened after this point. To anyone who isn't you, what happened after this point is you harassed these bases with your Vikings. I put SCVs at them, and then I had an income you didn't. I made a bunch of stuff and killed you. But if we worry only about the period of the time before this, the reason that you lost all these dudes to Hellions that didn't even have a medevac with them is because they could just walk around and kill your workers. And Hellions are faster than workers, and there's nowhere for your workers to run. If you look at my base, see how there's a solid wall here up to the command center, and then, well, usually there's a solid, yeah, I guess there was a building like a Rax right here that made a solid wall here, and then this is a solid wall. So basically, if you make a solid wall all around your workers, then if Blue Flame Hellions come up here and say, ha, I can hit you from here, you can just grab your SCVs, move them to here, and sure, you're not mining, but you don't lose any of them. And if he comes on this side, you just grab these couple and move them over here, and, you know, if he tries to come over here, it doesn't work either. So you have to make supply depots anyway. You might as well make them into a fortress defense, especially on your main, because later into the game, you got planetary fortresses everywhere, there's a lot of Vikings around, and you don't have to worry as much about Blue Flame Hellions. But your main, in the early part of the game, the first 10 minutes, there's usually, that's when most of the Blue Flame drop sort of stuff will happen. Anyway, so if you had lifted this depot, you could have gotten away with 36 living SCVs. It still would have sucked to lose 20 SCVs, but it wouldn't have been the end of the game. But failing to lift this depot was the end. It was the end. This is the end, my friend. So, as you can see, we were really dead even on everything. There's nothing that you did wrong macro-wise in this game. You really kept up or whatever with all of the unit production. You went for Marauder Tank Viking, which I think is a better composition than my Marauder Tank Hellion Marine with no Vikings. And you used it well. I don't know. It was really just the Hellions. So I don't know. It looks like at this point your army is bigger than mine, even though you've spent less money to make it, which I think is a little bit weird. It looks like, yeah, up until this point I've actually lost a bunch of money. I guess because I did some drops that got cleaned up or something. I don't remember. But anyway, at this point your army's bigger than mine, and it's a better composition. Viking Tank Marine Marauder is much better than my crap, with no visibility from these Vikings. So if you had pushed down here, I think you had a chance. Anyway, I've already said that, so I'll stop talking.